After interacting with a lot of my friends and also drawing from my own personal experience, I discovered that most people actually have their paycheck spent before they even receive it. Ask a lot of the people that you know how much they have in their bank account 5 days after they have received their paycheck, and most of them will tell you nothing. According to a recent study, 65% of all Americans live paycheck to paycheck. In fact, some studies put that figure up to 78%. And ideally, that's the same story with the rest of the world. In fact, for many parts of the world, it's even worse. For you to grow your money, you must know how to handle and deal with your paycheck. You must know how to distribute your money when you receive it. This is going to play a very big role in how your finances turn out and how wealthy you become. I, for a long time, personally used to receive a paycheck, and even right now that I do run my own businesses, I still do receive paychecks. But right now, I pay myself these paychecks. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you how I handle my money on payday that has ensured that not only do I live comfortably, but also that my money consistently grows. So stick around right through to the very end. So the first thing that I want you to understand is that we are talking about take-home income. We're not talking about your gross salary, so we are assuming that all your taxes have already been paid. Even me, in my case, while giving you my examples, I'm giving you all these figures after my taxes have been paid. That's not my money, yeah? It's never my money, it's money that belongs to the government. So we just forget all about that, and we're only talking about the money that you actually have available to you, the money that you can utilize. The second thing that you're going to have to understand is that my situation right now is quite different from my situation earlier on. Currently, I do have multiple businesses and I run multiple businesses, and these ensure that I actually have multiple income streams that can actually ensure that I can do a bit crazy things with the way I do earn my money. Now, earlier on, I was working as a doctor, and when I started out, of course, I didn't have a business, I didn't have a lot of these things, and I had to deal with my pay as a paycheck from a doctor's salary. That's all I had, and I believe that's more ideal. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I actually deal with my money right now that I do have businesses. I won't go into details of that, but a lot of people don't have that privilege, so it may not be too helpful or too practical for some of you, but it's an advantage that I do have that gives me a better cushion, and I'm going to be sharing that with you. So considering I do have multiple businesses, what I usually do is that each business, of course, does have its account. Yeah, so money comes in, and all the different businesses will have their money going into different individual accounts to just ensure that everything is not mixed up, and I understand the state of each and every one of those businesses. Now that gives me a cushion in that some accounts I never touch. I mean, there's businesses, for example, the YouTube business, some of the internet businesses, where I barely have to put in anything in terms of money for me to get out. I mean, I can put in my time, I can put in my effort. I do have a few expenses in there, for example, editors and things like that, but generally the expenses are not too much. So what that means is that I can leave those accounts untouched completely, and for example, consider it as a savings account, or maybe an emergency account, or maybe an investment account for me, and so I can just leave it right there, don't touch it, and I know it will work perfectly for me. But for a lot of other people, they don't have that privilege. Yeah? A lot of other people only have one account or one pay slip coming into their accounts, and they have to utilize that pay slip for everyone. So you need to understand that for someone who is in a position like mine right now, I can do things that are a bit out of the ordinary, the things that I didn't have to do earlier on when I was just starting out. The second thing is, I'm quite young, honestly, in all honesty, I'm quite young. What that means is that I can keep a huge chunk of the money I earn and just reinvest it into businesses without saving any of it. I mean, for some businesses, I just get all the money and put all of it back, completely all of it back. You know that stuff where people say that pay yourself first? For some businesses, I never do that because I never need to keep that money. I know that it's quite risky because I could lose the business, but I don't need to do that. I can just put all the money back into the business and hope that it's actually going to give me greater returns. Now, like I've said, I have the cushion of having other businesses, and I know that just in case this fails, I'll have others, but also I'm young and I'm willing to take the risk. So what that means is that just in case this business fails, well, I've lost some money, but in case it works out, then I'm making a lot of money. But if I lose money, I can still start over again, and for me, it's not a very huge risk. So I can do crazy things right now that I could ideally not have done earlier on. But what did I do earlier on that ensured that I get to this point? Let me share this with you. First thing I always did when I did receive my paycheck was pay my bills. You need to make sure you pay your bills. You see, people will always tell you, pay yourself first. I mean, pay yourself first usually means, get off some savings, some money for investment. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but in all practicality, it doesn't make sense for you to pay yourself first when you do have bills. What are the bills? The bills are usually the most essential things that you have to clear, the things that you can't live without. Things like your rent, if you're renting a house, or a mortgage, if you're, purchasing a house. Things like your food, things like your utilities, electricity, water, things like transport, fuel, if you have a car that you must have for your work. These are things that you must prioritize 100%. I mean, you can't choose to pay for your house rent after you've put off money for savings or anything. Imagine you have nothing left. What's going to happen? Your landlord is going to come and throw you out. If your landlord throws you out, how are you going to be making money if your landlord has thrown you out? So it's very, very important that you pay your bills first, the essential things. Now, this is important when it comes to paying your bills, because you need to make sure then that you minimize how big your bills are. For me, for example, personally, at the time when I was still practicing as a doctor, I wasn't married, I didn't have children, I didn't have a lot of necessities. So what that meant is that I could live in a small house that's really cheap. I mean, at that time, I was probably paying around $50 per month for my rent. And at that time, I was earning maybe about $850. So it was a small, tiny percentage of how much I was earning. I know in some countries, rent takes up 50-60% of how much money you earn. That's really crazy. You don't need to make sure that that happens. Yeah, live in a place as long as it is safe and people are not going to come and break in. You need to make sure that you keep the cost as low as possible and make sure that you can survive with that as you avail more income to do other things. The other thing is food. When it comes to food, avoid eating out. Make sure that you cook as often as possible because that's cheaper. If you can't cook, then don't eat from expensive places. That reduces the cost for you. Things like having to buy a car. If you don't really need a car, don't buy it. I mean, if you can survive and actually do your work properly, the work that ensures that you get money, do your work properly without having to own a car, then that would be perfect. I personally did that and it ensured that my money grew. So it's something that I advise each and everyone to do. So just make sure that you look at your essentials and minimize them to as low as possible, and so you'll have more money left for you to do other things. Now, the second thing that I would advise you to do after paying your bills is to save for an emergency. Now, this is very important. Now, I personally didn't do it, but right now that I have learned and experienced things right now, I would advise anyone. I mean, if I had to do it again, this is exactly what I would do. Of course, when you're starting out and you're still younger, you don't imagine that you'll have emergencies or things like that. But now that I've grown up and had some bit of experience and looked at a lot of friends and a lot of people, it's important that you do have money for emergencies. I mean, the investments can wait, everything else can wait. You never know when an emergency could strike. You never know when you could get sick. You never know when something terrible could happen to you and you need money to put aside. So what I advise is to keep at least 4 to 6 months of what you can live on. I mean, 4 to 6 months of your basic expenses, your monthly expenses. You can put that aside so that you have that cushion to be able to move on and do other things in case something happens. Then that's what I would advise you to do. Like I said, I personally didn't do this. Yeah, I went into the other steps before doing this, but I would advise that this is the second thing you need to put money aside for. I mean, the quicker you get to your 4 to 6 months savings, then the better it is for you, because then you can concentrate on other things without worrying that if something terrible happens, then you would have nothing left to save you in terms of, medical illnesses or anything else. And then the next thing to do is to save for investments. Now, I personally did this second. I mean, I didn't have what is point number 2 for us. I didn't have it. So what I was doing is save for investments. Now, saving for investments is actually very good and very important because it gives you the ability to invest when the opportunities come. A lot of people actually do get opportunities to invest, to start businesses, to do all these kinds of things, but because they don't have money left over, money saved for this purpose, then the opportunities are never realized. I mean, they won't even see them as opportunities because they don't have the money to take up the opportunities. So it's very important. Sometimes it might be to purchase land, to purchase a car that you might need, to invest in some form of business, to start a business. It's very important that you put money aside for a business. I personally did this for some time. I mean, since I didn't have a huge percentage of my money going into living expenses, I mean the basic needs of each and every day, I was spending a lot of my money keeping it aside for investments. I mean, a huge percentage, about 80% of what I was earning was simply going into money that I was keeping aside for investments. So it's very important that you do this because the opportunity, when it comes, you never see it. It No matter whether you feel like the opportunity has come or not, just put the money aside. And I advise that you do it on another account. An account which is safe, an account which you're less likely to touch and only will touch it when you actually do get an investment. The first thing is to save for retirement. Now, I know this is quite interesting because for a lot of countries, it's obligatory. You know, a percentage of your salary is cut off and it goes into your retirement savings. But the thing that I have noticed recently and have come to appreciate even more recently is that returns on retirement accounts are really good. I mean, some of them are upwards of 10%. Guys, that's crazy. 10% of compound interest, that's really unbelievable. I mean, if you can't maximize that, I don't know what else you would do. So I would advise you, and that I actually personally do right now, is I put up a huge percentage of my income. Despite what I'm obligated to put, I still add on in terms of retirement investment. It's very, very good because you don't know what will happen to you when you're 60, when you're 70. You don't want to start running around looking for money, getting stressed with money. No, you want to make sure that you maximize it as much as possible so that you still enjoy your life and have a good life to live even after you're retired. Even after retirement, it's still life. A lot of people consider the age after 60 years or 65 or 70 years to be wasted years. No, they are not. I mean, if you're going to be living for 100 years, after 60 years, you still have a whole 40 years. Think about it. 40 years of pain, suffering for no money? No. So you've got to maximize it. And then number 5, after I have appreciated and put money aside for this, then I can spend on my wants. Yeah, I can spend on my wants. I mean, I can spoil myself just a little bit. I personally don't have too many things that draw my desire or, you know, things that I would love to spend money on, but I still do. I mean, I love vintage cars and I bought myself a Volkswagen Beetle simply using this money. So, you know, spend your money on a few toys, a few of the things that you love. I mean, in the end, we are going to die. In the end, we're going to leave the earth, and if you want to enjoy some things, enjoy them. I mean, don't go out taking alcohol and getting drunk and abusing people and doing all these kinds of things. Maybe smoking and spoiling your lungs, no. But if it can be beneficial and it's beautiful, I mean, spending time with family, going out on holiday, vacation, then spend the money. Otherwise, why else are you working? Now, I know that for a lot of people who are watching this video, your biggest problem is you actually don't have enough money to do these things. You're telling me, hey, Dr. Daniel, you're telling me about saving, you know, for retirement, adding money onto my compulsory saving for retirement. Where do I get this money? I mean, I can't even get enough money to have food. I can't even get enough money to pay my rent. I mean, I'm living in debt each and every month. What do you advise me to do? Well, a lot of people, what they focus on is saving. I mean, they'll tell themselves, well, my expenses for the month are maybe $300. How about I save a little bit more and bring this down to $250? How is the extra $50 going to help you? Not at all. Well, it could help you, but not so much. Think about it, $50 in a year, you'll only have saved $600. How much more are you going to do with $600 over a year? Not too much. So what do you need to focus on? Making more money. You need to focus on making more money. Don't focus on saving. I mean, you can save a few more bucks, but that's not going to take you so far. So you need to focus on making more money. And how do you make more money? Well, number 1, you can make more money by getting a better job. That means you need to make sure that you actively look for a better job and improve your skills so that you're more hireable for a better job. Secondly, you can get more money by doing a side hustle. I mean, get some form of side hustle. Now, side hustles are things that I personally don't usually advise because they just take more of your time and you're exchanging your time for money. But if it's the only alternative, then you're going to have to start with that. I mean, start a side hustle. You're probably going to work more hours. You're going to bring in more money, and money usually opens you up to possibilities. And number 3, do something that brings you passive income. I mean, businesses on the internet, different kinds of things. I personally made a video on this channel about how to make passive income. I'll leave a link to that video right here. Check it out, yeah? How to make passive income in very many different ways. I trust that you'll like it. If you can increase how much money that you can make, then your life will certainly become very comfortable overnight. I mean, usually you don't just start making money overnight, but over this time, while you increase how much you earn, then you'll become more comfortable and you'll open your life up to more opportunities. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, I trust that you'll like this video right here about 4 things that I discovered that made me quit my job as a medical doctor and go full-time into business and making money. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Catch you very soon with another video. Lots of love. Bye-bye.